The conference room went silent when Vanessa Pike accidentally knocked my promotion folder into the trash can. "Oh my God," she said, laughing as she picked it up with 2 fingers. "Sorry, Arilla, wrong place." Half the room chuckled. I didn't. Then she laid the folder back on the table upside down, beside the cupcakes for the announcement. Vanilla frosting, gold sprinkles, tiny flags that said, "Leadership looks forward." Corporate America could turn humiliation into refreshments. CEO Graham Vale cleared his throat. "Today, we're choosing someone who makes clients feel comfortable, not someone who buries them under warnings." That was the first warning sign for me. Before I explain how my name ended up on a report I never approved, and how that ruined Vanessa's big promotion, please hit like, because this story is only beginning. I'm curious too. Where do you live and what's the temperature there? Now let me tell you who I was at Brantley & Core. I was Arilla Moore, Senior Client Risk Coordinator at Brantley & Core. I handled 18 corporate accounts, including Asterion Foods, a $62 million client. I caught risks before they became lawsuits. Vanessa handled smiles. She smiled at executives, at bad ideas, at Graham's visionary decision to rename meetings alignment huddles. Her favorite line was, "I just love making leadership feel supported." That afternoon, everyone knew I was up for Director of Client Integrity. Legal knew, my team knew. Asterion asked for me by name. But knowledge was less promotable than dimples. Graham opened the envelope. "The promotion goes to Vanessa Pike." Vanessa covered her mouth like surprise was part of her benefits package. "I may not know every technical detail," she said, glowing, "but I know people." The room applauded. I stared at my folder, still smelling faintly like trash. Afterward, Graham leaned close. "You're brilliant, Arilla, but Vanessa has better executive presence." Translation: 7 years of competence had lost to a sponsored smile. That night, I resigned and sent a 143-page transition file. Vanessa grinned. "Don't worry, I'll make it prettier." 3 days later, Asterion Foods called Brantley & Core. They were not asking for Vanessa, and the first document they questioned still had my name on it. Just so you know, this story is fictional and shaped with the help of AI to make every scene more vivid. But the emotions, the workplace lessons, and the meaning behind it may feel very real. Let's keep going. Before Vanessa became the office miracle with lip gloss, I had spent 7 years cleaning up Brantley & Core's client division. When I joined, the place was not a department. It was a smoke alarm with desks. 31% of reports came back rejected. Clients complained so often that legal kept a folder named "Again." Every Friday, an attorney rewrote language that should never have left, so I rebuilt the process. I created a 9-step risk checklist, 2-layer data verification, and 1 rule: no client document went out without a verified review signature. Revolutionary, I know. Apparently, asking professionals to check facts was my toxic trait. Within 18 months, our error rate dropped to 2.8%. Leadership called me detail-oriented, in the same tone people use for difficult. Vanessa Pike became refreshing. She walked into meetings 6 minutes late, opened her laptop like a curtain, and smiled. Sorry, I was aligning with leadership. That meant she had been laughing near Graham's office. Behind closed doors, she asked me questions that should have come with a helmet. Compliance review comes before the client signs, right? Or after, when it's final. I saved her 3 times that year. A wrong tax appendix, a missed data privacy deadline, and an outdated contract template that had expired 14 months earlier. Each time, she floated into the recap call and said, "Our team handled it beautifully." Our team, of course, meant I worked until midnight while she added a warmer introduction slide. Then came Asterion Foods. Graham assigned Vanessa to lead the quarterly presentation because nothing says risk management like good cheekbones and no context. 10 minutes before rehearsal, she leaned over my desk and whispered, "Can you make the risk section sound simple enough for me to say naturally?" I did my job. This time, I saved every edit, every warning, and every handoff email. Because after I resigned, Vanessa sent Asterion a report. At the bottom, it still said, "Reviewed by Arilla Moore," After Vanessa sent that report, Astrian Foods received what looked like a consultant's dream. Soft blue headers, glossy pie charts, clean spacing, and a cover page that probably made Graham feel emotionally safe. Vanessa had even added a sentence at the top. Our integrity remains our highest priority. Beautiful words, especially on a document carrying the name of a woman who no longer worked there. I did not see the report that morning. I was home, drinking coffee from a mug that did not say teamwork on it, enjoying my first quiet Monday in years. But over at Asterion, Marianne Holt, their general counsel, was reading page 9 with the expression attorneys get when something smells expensive. Marianne knew my writing. My risk notes were direct, numbered, and irritatingly specific. If a clause exposed them in 12 states, I said 12 states. If a deadline was 45 days away, I did not write soon. This report said potential concerns may be monitored as needed. That was not risk analysis. That was a fortune cookie wearing a blazer. Marianne called Brantley and Core and asked, "May I speak with Erla Moore?" Vanessa answered. I was told later she sounded cheerful, which was brave, considering she was standing on a trap door she had decorated. "Erla is no longer with us," Vanessa said, "but I've taken over her responsibilities." There was a pause. "Then why is her name on the review certification?" Marianne asked. Vanessa chose the kind of answer that makes lawyers blink slowly. It's more of a legacy template. Somewhere, I imagine every legal department within 10 miles felt a chill. Marianne asked for written confirmation that I had reviewed and approved the report. Vanessa replied with a masterpiece of corporate fog. The document followed Erla's established review framework. But Asterion had not asked about a framework. They had asked who accepted legal responsibility. By 4:18 p.m., Marianne found my personal email in an old contact sheet. Her message had one attachment and one question. "Did you review the attached report?" I opened Marianne Holt's email twice, because the first time my brain refused to accept the attachment. There it was, a new Asterion report, dated after my resignation, polished until it looked expensive. And at the bottom, under review certification, sat my name, Erla Moore. Not Vanessa's, not Graham's, mine. I did not smile. I did not panic. I did not call anyone and start throwing adjectives around like office confetti. I simply understood what had happened. Vanessa had not wanted my job. She had wanted my credibility stapled to her performance. So I replied in 4 sentences. No, I did not review, approve, authorize, or certify this report. My last working day was March 28th. All post-departure materials should not carry my review signature. Please treat any such use as inaccurate. No insults, no sob story, no tiny angry emoji, just facts. And facts, I had learned, are very rude to people who survive on charm. Marianne moved fast. Within an hour, Asterion formally requested Brantley and Core's edit logs, final approver names, my transition package, and every client document sent after my departure. Suddenly, Vanessa's pretty report had become a paper trail with excellent lighting. An internal meeting followed. Someone forwarded me notes later, because corporate panic travels faster than payroll. Vanessa apparently laughed and said, "This is being blown out of proportion." Of course it was. Accountability always feels dramatic to the person holding the match. I sent Marianne my full 143-page handoff email, including the line I had written in bold. All future reports must remove my certification block unless reviewed by me prior to departure. By 5 o'clock, legal found 11 documents sent after I left that still carried my review certification. Vanessa tried one last dance. I didn't forge anything. It was already in the template. The company attorney answered, "You sent it." Then came the detail that turned the room cold. One of those 11 reports involved an $18 million data privacy clause alone. Asterion did not cancel right away. That would have been dramatic, fast, and far too merciful. Instead, they activated the audit rights buried in Section 14 of the Master Service Agreement, the kind of clause executives ignore until it walks into the room carrying a binder. They wanted process logs, approval records, document history, and names. Especially names. I was not in the building anymore, but by then my phone had become a quiet little museum of forwarded panic. Vanessa, according to one message, tried to turn the whole thing into a misunderstanding. "Asterion loves me," she told leadership. "I had a great rapport on the welcome call." Rapport. Magical substance. It apparently smells like confidence and repairs absolutely no false certifications. The auditors arrived 2 days later. Vanessa came prepared with a slide deck, because when reality is on fire, nothing says control like navy blue bullet points. She smiled and said, "We believe in collaborative accountability." One auditor asked, "Who had final approval authority on April 3rd? Vanessa looked at legal. Legal looked at the table. The table, wisely, said nothing. Then they pulled the system logs. At 9:12 p.m. on April 2nd, Vanessa had opened my transition file. At 9:18, she deleted my red warning note. Remove my certification block from future reports. At 9:24, she left my review signature in place. At 9:31, she renamed the file Asterion _final_approved_VP. VP, Vanessa Pike. Very professional, very prosecutable looking. One auditor adjusted his glasses and said, "Interesting. The only thing final here appears to be your judgment." That was when leadership finally stopped pretending this was a personality issue. They had not just promoted the wrong person. They had handed legal-grade client material to someone who thought approval meant making a document look calm. Suddenly, my checklist sounded less negative and a lot more like seatbelts. By Friday afternoon, Asterion froze the next quarterly payment, $15.7 million, pending full verification of every file Vanessa had touched personally. Once the payment freeze hit, Vanessa stopped smiling like a team player and started smiling like a defendant in training. Her first story was simple. I had not handed things over clearly. That died at 8:42 a.m. when legal found her read receipt on my transition email. 143 pages, opened, downloaded, and acknowledged. Tragic, really, when technology refuses to respect a convenient lie. Her second story was that I had left behind a confusing template. That also collapsed because page 3 of my handoff stated, in bold, remove my review block from all post-departure client materials. So she reached for the oldest office weapon, character assassination. During the executive verification call, Vanessa said, "This is emotional. Arila never got over the promotion decision." That was when they invited me into the meeting. I joined from my kitchen table in a white blouse, because if I was going to be accused of revenge, I wanted to look disappointingly organized. Graham avoided the camera. Vanessa stared straight ahead, wearing the brave expression of someone hoping confidence could delete metadata. I said, "If this were emotional, I would have used adjectives. I used dates, documents, and system logs." No one interrupted. Then I walked them through 6 points. My resignation date, my handoff timestamp, Vanessa's receipt, the edit time on the Asterion file, the send time to the client, and Marianne Holt's request for confirmation. 6 steps, no drama, just truth, standing in a line with clean shoes. Vanessa cut in. "You're making me look incompetent." I looked at her squarely. "No, Vanessa, I'm making the timeline visible." That should have ended it. Naturally, corporate disasters prefer an encore. A junior IT analyst named Omar Reyes joined late and cleared his throat. He had found a service ticket from April 3rd. Vanessa had requested that my old certification block be restored after the system removed it automatically. Her note read, "Please put Arila's review signature back. Client expects continuity of service." After Omar's service ticket surfaced, Asterion stopped treating the problem like a clerical mistake and scheduled a formal breach review. I was not supposed to attend. Then Marianne Holt sent me a calendar invite with one sentence. "We need the person who understands the work." So I joined as an observer, camera off, while Brantley and Core tried to save a $62 million relationship with phrases polished smooth by fear. Richard Calloway, our CEO, opened with his best boardroom voice. "We deeply value this partnership." Marianne replied, "We value accuracy." That gentle sentence landed like a gavel wrapped in silk. Asterian's demands came next: an independent audit, refund of the disputed quarter's consulting fees, and immediate removal of Vanessa from any account touching Asterian data. No debate, no alignment huddle, just consequences, finally wearing shoes. Vanessa, however, refused to sink quietly. She leaned toward the microphone and said, "I built trust with your team." Marianne looked at her for a long second. "No, Erla did. You inherited the room and mislabeled the work." For once, Vanessa had no smile ready. Then Asterian's privacy officer shared a new finding. In Vanessa's report, one data confidentiality clause had been summarized incorrectly. That error could have pushed Asterian out of compliance with supplier commitments in 12 states. Estimated exposure, $18 to $24 million. I watched Richard's face change. 2 weeks earlier, he had called Vanessa executive material. Now he looked at her like a liability with lip gloss. Vanessa tried one last turn. My team should have caught that before it reached me. 3 people from my former team immediately forwarded emails showing they had warned her. Dates, subject lines, highlighted sections. Apparently, betrayal is less effective when everyone uses Outlook. The room went quiet again, but this time nobody laughed. Marianne closed her folder. Asterian will not continue with Brantley and Core unless Erla Moore is retained as an independent transition advisor, starting this week. And that was how Vanessa lost control of the very account she had been promoted to impress. The next morning, Brantley and Core called me like a man dialing the fire department after removing every smoke detector himself. It was Graham Vale. The same man who said I lacked executive presence now sounded as soft as butter left on a dashboard. "Erla, we'd love to explore a temporary consulting arrangement." I asked. "For whom?" He paused. "For us, technically." "Then no." Silence. Beautiful, billable silence. 20 minutes later, Asterian called separately. Marianne Holt made the terms clear. I would not represent Brantley and Core. I would serve as Asterian's independent transition advisor, protecting their data, reviewing the disputed files, and documenting exactly what had been touched after my departure. $850 an hour, minimum 120 hours. I accepted, with conditions. Every meeting recorded, every file shared through secure channels, no quiet edits, no hidden responsibility, and absolutely no use of my name to sanitize old mistakes. 2 days later, I entered the transition meeting on Asterian's side of the table. Vanessa was there too, but not at the head anymore. She sat beside an HR attorney, hands folded, smile running on emergency power. "Funny how things work out," she said. I opened my laptop. "Not funny, documented." We began reviewing the files. Within an hour, I found more than my certification block. Vanessa had copied entire paragraphs from my old risk analyses, pasted them into new reports, and removed the context that made them accurate. A warning about one supplier became a general approval. A note about expired privacy language became a reassuring summary. Apparently, she had not misunderstood my work. She had redecorated it. Then Marianne handed me Vanessa's promotion packet. There, under leadership contributions, Vanessa had written that she led Erla's client integrity framework through successful adoption. I looked at the sentence for a long moment. Even in a room full of lawyers, the theft was impressive. She had not taken credit accidentally. She had built a promotion on it carefully. By the time Vanessa's promotion packet surfaced, Brantley and Core could no longer pretend this was a paperwork hiccup with a good personality. The board opened an internal investigation. Suddenly, the question was not whether Vanessa understood client risk. Everyone had seen enough to answer that, sadly, with charts. The real question was who had promoted her while ignoring every warning sign flashing like a casino floor. I did not need to accuse anyone. I uploaded documents, emails, version histories, meeting notes, the 3 warnings my team had sent, the handoff file Vanessa had opened, the promotion claim where she somehow led a framework she once asked me to explain using smaller words. One director frowned and asked, "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" I looked at him through the screen. "I did. You called it negativity." That sentence did not echo. It landed. Because that was the disease. In offices like ours, truth was negative, flattery was collaborative, and a woman preventing lawsuits was too rigid until the lawsuits started stretching. The final investigation report was not poetic. It was worse. It was precise. Vanessa had used my certification after my departure, sent unapproved client materials, and misrepresented her role in the promotion process. Brantley and Core agreed to refund $4.6 million in disputed fees, pay for the independent audit, and accept Asterian's 90-day termination notice. Their vendor rating dropped to high risk pending review. Vanessa was suspended immediately. Graham Vale was placed under investigation for bypassing competency scoring and documenting client warmth as a leadership qualification. Vanessa cried during the closing meeting. I was just trying to keep things moving. I said, that's the problem. You kept things moving without knowing where they were going. 2 hours later, Marianne Holt called me directly. Asterian had a new role opening, Director of Vendor Integrity, real authority, real standards, real review power. And this time, nobody asked whether I smiled enough. 3 months later, I walked into Asterian Foods with a new badge, a real office, and a salary 68% higher than the one Brantley and Core had decided I should be grateful for. My title was Director of Vendor Integrity. My authority was written down. My team had budget, access, and the freedom to stop bad documents before they became expensive apologies. Best of all, nobody called accuracy too rigid or asked me to make legal risks sound comfortable. Brantley and Core did not recover as neatly as their press statement suggested. After Asterian left, 2 more clients requested certification histories. Then they requested exit meetings. Then they requested new vendors. Not because I badmouthed anyone. I never needed to. Clients had learned the right question. Who is actually reviewing our documents? It turned out that question was bad for companies built on smiles and shortcuts. Vanessa disappeared quietly. Her LinkedIn changed from Director of Client Integrity to Leadership Consultant, which was a bold move for someone who had confused integrity with leaving my name on a template. Graham resigned 6 weeks later, citing personal priorities. Corporate translation: consequences finally found parking. On my first day, Marianne introduced me to Asterian's legal and compliance teams. She said, "This is Erila Moore. She doesn't make things look safe. She makes them safe." For the first time in months, I smiled. Not the office smile. Not the please like me smile. Not Vanessa's glossy little performance for men who mistook charm for competence. Mine was quieter. It belonged to a woman who had been insulted, ignored, copied, blamed, and still chose documentation over revenge. Justice at work does not always arrive shouting. Sometimes it arrives as one email, one timeline, and one client smart enough to ask, "Why did the best person leave?" This story reminded me that doing the right thing may feel invisible for a long time, but integrity always leaves a trail. People can steal your title, your credit, or even your work for a while, but they cannot fake competence forever. In the end, truth has a way of introducing itself. First, never confuse confidence with capability. The loudest person in the room is not always the most qualified. Real value is built quietly through consistency, discipline, and responsibility. Second, document everything. In toxic workplaces, memory becomes politics. Facts, timelines, emails, and honesty protect you better than emotions ever will. Third, do not shrink yourself just because others call your standards too much. The right environment will not punish you for being careful, ethical, or competent. It will respect you for it. Now I'm curious. Which lesson stayed with you the most? If this story meant something to you, I'd truly love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your experiences and perspectives make this community more meaningful for everyone listening. And if you enjoy stories about workplace justice, growth, and self-worth, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with someone who may need it today. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next story.